Just real quick introduction. For those of you who don't know me, I was one of the founders of Traction. I was involved with FarmWorks since 1993. My background's all in accounting, so give me some grace if I'm not the most dynamic speaker today. My involvement with Traction, I am focused on the product side for all the accounting applications. So I work with the developers in adding new features like budgeted cash flows. So budgeted cash flows, where you will find it is down in the report section. You go to accounting. And for those of you that have done a market value report before, the budget works very similar to the market value that you actually kind of create it from the report. So if I go to the budgeted cash flows option here, this will bring up any budgets that I previously created. So I've already done a budget for 2025. So that one is listed here and it's being shown here. The big thing to say up front about budgets, you can make as many of them as you want. I'll show you examples how you can take budgets and make copies of them and change different values in them. Budgets, really this area is something you don't have to worry about hurting anything else in the program. Budgets, while it can use values from actual values from the previous year. Everything you do is really self-contained within this budget. So if you want to just create a budget and start playing around and put numbers in, it's no big deal. You can play around and you can delete that budget when you're done. So again, this list, I've only done one budget. This would give me, if I've got 3 or 4 years of budgets, I would have a list of all those budgets in there. But what we're going to do this morning is just create one from scratch. So creating from scratch, I'll just use that plus new option. It's just going to take through and ask me questions about that budget. So first thing I'm going to say is I am going to, and let me just cancel a second, and I'm going to hide that chat icon. There we go. So the first thing I'm going to do is say this is going to be for our 2026 year, the budget that I'm doing, and it's going to start in January. So my starting month is January 26. It's a 12-month budget, runs from January to December. So I'm doing this in a calendar year. If you're working on a fiscal year, you want to do it July through June, it's no big deal. You can set the time frame on it. On the entity side, you can pick and choose entities. So if you've got two entities that kind of work together and you budget them together, I can do those two entities. If I'm doing a separate budget for each entity, I can do that, can kind of mix them any way that I want. And this description is how I'm going to see that budget to pick it out. So Traction will automatically create a description based off the year and the entities you've selected. But you could go in and add any type of information you want. So I'm just going to call this, I'm going to put banker at the end of it because this is the budget that I'm doing for the banker. Now, the thing to really help you out to get started is if you were using Traction for all of 2025, and if I want to use my 2025 revenue and expenses as a starting point for this budget, I can say copy from previous year's actual. I'll kind of show you what that does. So I've got everything filled in. One big thing on all this, if you make a mistake on any of this, it's no big deal. You can go back and change it. I'll show you kind of how you can do that. So I'll hit the save button. And now you will see I've got that 2026 budget and you'll see it's all filled in for me. So it's filled in now. These are all of my actual revenue and expenses by month filled in from 2025 for the 2026 budget. So to go in and actually put in my budgeted values, I'm just going to hit the edit button. This takes me into a screen where I can go in and add values and edit values. So budget's kind of a big spreadsheet, but we've done some things to make it easier so you're not looking at so much data at once. So you'll see there's categories over here: revenue and expense, asset sales and purchases, debt, owner draws, and cash position. And if I open any one of these sections, now I'm going to see all the individual categories or accounts that I can budget for. So where these accounts come from is from your chart of accounts. So any accounts that you've got set up that are tied to the entities you've selected will show here for budgeting. So what you'll see now, we've got a total column, and then we've got a column for each month. So I can go ahead now and make changes. If I know maybe February, I'm going to sell $100,000 of corn. Can go in and update values. As I update these values, you see the total's going to change for me right there. The other thing you can do if you've got something like, say, hedging gains and losses, and those I know kind of come and go throughout the year, and typically I wind up with maybe 15,000 for the year. You can also type in the total column there, and that will spread those amounts across for you. So kind of it's all meant to be that anything that's consistent across a month, type in the totals. If it's different every month, you can change those different amounts in there. Now, even the other side of it is that if I want to say my miscellaneous income is going to be 5,000, but I know I'm going to have a big amount in January, even once you go in and spread it across the months, you can change those values. So just kind of some quick ways to fill values in there. So I mean, normally I kind of start with my revenues there. Next thing I do is go into my expenses. If I take some things in here and say maybe fertilizer, I'm going to do a big prepay at the end of the year. I could go in and say maybe I put 500,000 in there for December to spread it across, and maybe something like our fuel and oil expense. That I really don't keep track of it by month. So maybe I just know next year we expect to send maybe $20,000 for it and just spread it across there. So I'm not going to bore you by filling every single value in, but that's kind of where you'll go in and update these values for it. So the income and expenses, those are kind of the obvious options. This will show me each month then the net cash from operations. So that's just going to be cash-wise the difference in my income and expenses for each month. So based off that money, cash-wise, it looks like I'm going to be losing money for the year there. Can go in then asset sales. If I expect to have any money from selling land or selling equipment, I could put those in. Asset purchases, I'll kind of go through an example with you here. So let's take an example that maybe March, I expect to buy a new tractor, and I kind of want to account for the cash that's going to be going out for that. So that tractor I know is going to be on this account, the farm equipment traction. Maybe that tractor is going to cost me $250,000. So I've got that amount as an asset purchase. It's going to be coming out of my cash, but I'm not going to spend 250,000. I know I'm going to take out a loan for it. So I would go into my new debt and I would take the loan that I'm going to borrow on and put in the amount that I expect to borrow. So if I expect to borrow 200,000, I can put that amount in. So what we're doing is we're saying we're going to spend 250,000, but we're also going to have 200,000 coming in. So net effect, we're just spending $50,000 for the difference in the two of them. Now, the key, this loan does need to be something set up in my chart of accounts. If you get to this budget and say, okay, that's a new loan, I haven't added it to my chart of accounts, how do I add it? Really no big deal. To add it, I can just save and close and then go back to my chart of accounts. I had mine added before, but you could then add it there. And then once you add it there, you can just go right back to that budget and it would be showing up in there when you added it. So this budget's something you don't have to do everything at once. You can kind of edit it and go back and save it and work on it later. Is really no big deal there. The loan side, then you can put in all the payments each month you've got on the loans. So we'll say maybe that new tractor loan, I'm going to be paying maybe 2,000 a month on it. So that tractor loan, I'll just say, okay, total for the year is 24,000, but the payments aren't going to start till April. So I can delete the amounts out of each month that I'm not paying. So kind of ways just to factor that cash flow into it. And last thing then, owner draws, I can just go in and say, okay, I've got two different entities here, but maybe the traction farms. In total, if you do family living, the total amount of family living for the year, this wouldn't be wages paid through wage expense. This would be money that either going out to family living or being paid out as dividends on it. So if traction's going to pay about, I don't know, maybe 100,000 in dividends, can put those dividends in, and the same with these drawing accounts. So again, it's not wages that I'm paying through wage expense. This would just be if you've got family living or dividends that are being paid out or draws that are paid out to the owners on it. So the key to this budget is going to be the bottom row down here. The bottom row is going to be my cash position. So what this is showing for each month, what the beginning cash position is, how much money I should have at the start of the month, what the change is for that month, and what we expect to have in the ending cash position. So this ending cash position is really the key thing that I'm looking at with it. Now, you'll notice like for every month except January, the budgeted ending cash position becomes the beginning for the next month. That's just kind of how the budgets work. The 7,001, the amount for the first month of January, this is the amount that Traction has calculated for me. So that amount, if I were to go look at a balance sheet, would be the total of all my cash accounts, checking accounts, savings accounts, anything I've got like that, minus any amounts that I had borrowed on a credit card or on a line of credit that's set to work as a checking account. So if you had money borrowed on your operating loan on a line of credit at the end of December, this number would be negative because Traction would factor that into it. Now, if your Traction books are wrong and you haven't had time to fix them and you're desperate to get a balance sheet out to the banker, you can change this number. If I know it's really 25,000, I can change it. Changing it there does not change anything except for the budget, so it's not going to go back and fix your accounts in Traction. It's just going to change it for this report. And if you change it and then figure out later that you want to reset it to what Traction is, all you got to do is just delete it and click away, and it'll recalculate the Traction balance. So again, the key with all this, my ending cash position, what this is kind of showing me is if I've got my operating loan factored into this, the negative amounts here is telling me the amounts that I'm going to have borrowed. And kind of what I'm typically looking at with these, I'm looking at my worst months and seeing. So like in this case, December, our worst amount, 700,000. So that's kind of watching to see if I've only got a $500,000 operating loan and it's showing 700,000, I need to look. Maybe did I make any mistakes in here, or is it just a matter of, geez, I got to be talking to my banker and get the operating loan raised? So a couple other things in here just to talk about. When you're all done, there's probably going to be some accounts in here that you're not budgeting. And just kind of to clean things up, we give you an option up here to say whether I want to show all accounts or show accounts that are non-zero. So what this will do is when I switch it, and this is probably something you can turn it on and off, it's no big deal. But once you've kind of got everything budgeted in there, I can switch it to non-zero. And what it does, it just cleans things up on the budget. So I'm not seeing all those blank lines in it. And all of that will carry over into the printing side of it too. So I'm just going to go ahead, save and close that. So I save and close it. Now I'm seeing that budget on the screen right there. That budget, I do have the option. I can print it, just do a printout with it. Printing it, I can save it as a PDF file. So if I want to email it to my bank or something like that. We also do give an export option. So the export option will give you the ability to export it as a CSV. So if you want to do some sort of extra analysis with this, or maybe your banker likes to have, he wants to do some things with his own spreadsheet, just export it as a CSV. That's something you can give them. We'll give you all the values just like you see it here. So a couple other things on this report for 2026, it's not going to do me a lot of good, but if I go back to a budget I did for 2025, one of the options for budget, I can see budget and budget versus actual. So budget versus actual will give me a lot of information on the screen, But what this is going to do is for every line of that budget, I'm going to see the first line is my budgeted value, and the second line, which is bolded, is my actual value. So this gives me a lot of information, but it kind of gives me my comparative information. So as I go through the year, I can see how it works. Now, if you're really good and if you manage your budget well and kind of want to watch and see how things work where I am in my budget each month, one of the things we built into this is that my ending cash position for all of the past months is going to show what my budgeted cash position is versus my actual. So, I mean, this is showing I'm not doing too well compared to my budget, that I've had a lot of months way off on the budget. But what we'll do for future months, and if I hover over November, what that'll do, my future months, it's going to take my actual cash flow as of the end of October and take the budgeted values to show what I would be getting if the budget happened. So this is kind of a way, even though my budget hasn't happened the way that I expected it to, probably what I know if I'm watching this every month, I want to know is based off what's happened for the last 10 months, what's the next 2 months going to be? So this gives me the ability to look down there that this is saying that based off my actual 7,000 at the end of October, taking into account my November budget, I'll be 56 in the hole and 20 in the hole in December. So this is the one, if you're doing budget just for the banker, this is probably no big deal. But if it's something where you're really watching it month to month to watch your cash position, it's a nice feature to have out there.
Scott, we have a we have a question. The question is, are there plans to allow debt accounts to pre-fill from last year's numbers?
There are, as well as asset purchases and things like that. So that was something that just didn't quite make it into this phase. So, and that's true for the comparative too. So this comparative is today going to be expenses, revenue, and owner draws. Future plans we do have for debt and for asset side of it. So good questions. Today it's not there for actual, but it will be in the future, some point in the future. Okay. I think one last thing just kind of to go through is talk about how you can do different scenarios. So I did this scenario for the banker. I'm just going to switch it so it's only budgeted here. But what I'd like to do is kind of play around and run different scenarios. Maybe I'd want to see, okay, cash wise, what would it be in a best case scenario? What would it be in a worst case scenario? So I'm just going to go ahead and make a brand new one. This new one, once again, I'm going to say is 2026. I'm going to pick my same entities, and I'm just going to put best case on it. Now, this one I'm not going to copy from the actual. I'm just going to create a blank one. So that budget doesn't have anything in it. And I'm going to edit that budget, and I'm going to say I want to fill it with, and when I do fill cells, this gives me a list of all the budgets I've created before. So I can say, let's fill it with that banker budget. And when I hit save, now I've got that same banker budget in there. So the best case scenario, I could go in and say, okay, we're just going to bump up. And that gives me a way to kind of look at what would my cash position be if I had those other values on it. And I can save this and make different comments. I could do the same thing, a second one with the worst case budget, drop values down there. And it's really easy to have multiple copies on all these. I mean, and again, the part of this is if I get that best case done and I decide I don't need it, at any point I can edit and I can delete. And delete is only going to delete this budget. It's not touching anything I actually did, just deleting that budget out of it. Last comment to say, if you make a mistake when you set it up, this gear button is where I can go to change it. So if I want to change that name and make it look a little bit different, I could change the name there. I could change the time period, the entities, anything that I want there. So I'll open it up. Are there any other questions out there?
You had another question in chat, Scott.
Okay.
Is it possible to bring a multi-year average of previous year data in?
There's not. It's an interesting idea, but there is not. It would take a bit, but with this, you could do a separate budget for each year, export as a CSV. There'd be a lot of work there, but you can get it all out into a CSV side of it, but it's strictly last year.
Yeah, I
Any
had
other?
to just share this, Scott. He said he won't charge you extra for that brilliant
I saw.
idea.
A
That
very
was a
good
good question.
idea.
I thought it was a really good idea.
Cool. No other questions. Guess any feedback compared to other budgets that you've done?
Yeah, and you
Well,
guys can use the toolbar at the bottom to unmute yourself if you want to just verbally ask the question versus the chat. No, not seeing any more questions here, Scott.
cool. Either put them to sleep or just doing what they want them to do. We'll see.
All right, yeah, appreciate that. Fantastic update from Traction. Well, this is what it's all about. If there's anything you guys on your chest that you want to get out there, any other topics that you want to bring up, well, this be the time to do it. Other than that, we'll probably just go to the last slide. Oh, we got a question here from Brian. Uh, like in FarmWorks, can we create a family living budget in the owner's draw area?
We don't, Brian. We kind of debated about that. We kind of looked back at some of the things that FarmWorks did, and we actually had more people that kind of struggled with that side of it. So probably the best thing I'd say, maybe if you got it and export it as a CSV file and then expand the CSV in Excel or something like that would be the biggest thing with it. That was a tough decision for us, which way to go with it. So I think that's one, if we get a lot of feedback where we've got a lot of people really looking for that, we might look in the future. And I see Steve with the custom crop report, and that's just not quite yet getting close. It's on the roadmap, but I can't say it's getting near the top or anything there. But good comment, good feedback.
Okay. Well, Scott, you want to go to the slide deck and just go to that last slide, and we'll just kind of wrap this up. Um, yeah, so feel free to keep asking questions through the chat, or if you want to unmute yourself, go for it. But I just wanted to share the next webinar. So we will be doing the exact same type of webinar next week, next Thursday. So Scott's going to go through the exact same thing live. So if you have somebody in your farm that wants to join and rather do it live versus watching a recording, you can do that next week. And we also have another webinar. It's more about the Keystone Cooperative Integration for Bills. So if you have to be a Keystone customer, if you want to join us for that one on November 4th, we do have that webinar coming up next week. And in these webinars, we do post them on the website. So I believe at the very bottom, if you go to events, or you just go to this web address here, you can see all the upcoming trade shows that we'll be at, plus webinars. Um, I think we really like these webinars. We just trying to figure out how to do them moving forward, because I think a lot of you do like these. And if we can just take a little bit of time and not spend hours upon hours at a webinar, but hit very specific topics like this one today, I believe you guys really enjoy that, and we'd like to continue doing that. So if any of you have suggestions for future webinars, we'd love to hear that. Scott, there is some other stuff coming through the chat. Are you seeing that as well?
I am, yes. So I think, Kirk, the question about having a crop plan, that is definitely, this is kind of the focus right now is the accounting side. But as we move forward, at some point, our goal is to have a crop plan where I could plan out a lot more detail to individual chemical seed fertilizers based off the crops and everything. And the goal, once we get that into this, would be that once you get that crop plan done, at that point, we're going to know what the total dollars are for like chemical seed fertilizer, just to be able to say, okay, I expect to pay it in this month's, and then have that right into the budgeted cash flow. So it's something we've thought through. It was just a matter of walk before you run, and the accounting side was our main focus. So yes, definitely at some point. And Joel's question, a worksheet area to help build the budget. That I'm not sure about. Joel, is that kind of the crop plan that you're talking about? Is getting it down to like individual seeds and chemicals and fertilizer by field? Okay, good, good. So I did cover that one. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Great webinar today, Scott. Thanks for walking us through that.